In today's video, we're going to do the fourth Winter 13-14 roundup video. Today, you're going to have a look at sea surface temperature anomalies, ENSO, solar activity, snow cover across Siberia, and we're going to come up with some ideas for where things are progressing as we move through now well on into the autumn. Of course, eventually all this is going to finish up in the official and final GazWeatherViz.com winter forecast, which will be released at GazWeatherViz on December the 1st. But all of this is building up to it, and the seasonal model roundup videos as well. I'd hope to get the seasonal model video done today, but unfortunately we're just short of a couple updating. The Jamstack hasn't updated yet, neither has the UK Met Office, the big one, our own model, that hasn't updated yet either. So I'm going to postpone that to next week. It will be with you, I promise, it will be with you next Sunday, the seasonal model roundup video. We get all the models together and see what they're showing. I'd say that will be with you next Sunday. Now, before I get on with this video, just want to talk about the advertising. There's video ads on my page at GazWeatherViz.com. The video ad on this page, on my home page, is sitting just above this video, just literally above. If you move up and just hit play on the video ad, you support GazWeatherViz.com. That's all you have to do. You don't necessarily have to watch the ad or sit all the way through it. Just press play on the video player, it buffers and then starts playing, and when you do that, you support GazWeatherViz.com. So please do that. It allows me to have the website and do the videos. It pays for the website, it pays for me to sit here and talk to you. So thanks very much for doing that. I know that you do it. Please do do that, and you're supporting GazWeatherViz.com when you do it. So let's just have a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies, how they was as we started October. This is for the 3rd of October. And two areas specifically that I'll focus on for today's video, the Atlantic around here, and the Pacific, equatorial Pacific, go through there. So we've got neutral ENSO conditions on the 3rd of October, and quite cool actually in this particular region just here. The Atlantic was pretty warm, to be honest, lots of warm temperature anomalies through the Atlantic Ocean. So let's have a look at the latest one. This was from the 17th of October, and very little change in terms of the Atlantic. Actually, I think things have warmed a little bit in this area. So yep, we've got some warm water going on here. We've also, I think, generated a little bit of cold water just here through the mid-Atlantic, and still the tropical Atlantic is pretty warm, to be honest. Surprisingly, given how quiet the hurricane season has been, but there hasn't been any hurricanes, so not really churned up the water and cooled it off, so still pretty warm through the tropical Atlantic. Now, is this getting towards a tripole? Let's clear that away and have another look. So we've got warm up there. We're pretty warm through the tropical Atlantic. Not massively warm, but pretty warm there. And we have got a little bit of cold water beginning to develop in the mid-Atlantic. So the way this is developing, I'm not that sure that we aren't starting to shift towards the tripole. Now, you remember when I did the NAO forecast at the start of June, I said that we had a tripole in May, and the idea was that the tripole would fade as we go through the summer into the autumn, and then would probably start to come back as we head in towards winter. This could just be the start of beginning to find the tripole signal starting to re-emerge through the Atlantic. We've got to see whether we can start to generate a more wider area of cool water in this region here. If this can go cool, with the tropics still pretty warm, and this area here to the south of Greenland and going over towards the British Isles quite warm, we won't be that far from developing a tripole. So quite interesting developments starting to take place in the Atlantic. Now for the Pacific, things are cooling off a little bit around this area. This is where the PDO signal is. So we are shifting more towards a colder PDO. We're in the era of the cold PDO, of course. I think we changed around 2007. We'll be in the cold Pacific decadal oscillation for the next 25 years, probably 20-25 years, something like that. So you would expect the water there to be cold. It is cold. If anything, it'll probably get colder over the next few weeks. Now the ENSO region, quite interesting as well. Let's just quickly go back and have a look at it on the 3rd of October. That was the ENSO region on the 3rd of October. I want you to focus specifically on this area just here. Just focus on that area there. It's quite cool still on the 3rd of October. Let's just go forward to the 17th. There's been a definite warming there. Been a definite warming in that part of the equatorial Pacific. Now, I've been saying that I think we're going to shift from ENSO neutral on the La Nina side, which is what we've got just here, this cold water around here. It isn't a La Nina, but it's on the La Nina side of neutral. I've been saying I think we're going to shift from that towards the El Nino side of neutral. Definite signs of that beginning to take place with this warmer water beginning to upwell here. What's interesting is that the warm water is not uploading off the coast of Peru as it does in a typical El Nino. It's not rising up in that area just there. It's rising up further out into the central part of the Pacific. That's a signal for a Madiki El Nino, which means that the warm water comes up to the surface further away from the coast of Peru. It comes up in the mid part of the equatorial Pacific as opposed to this coastal strip just here, which is where the El Nino starts in a typical El Nino event. And El Nino Madiki, which again is warm water through this mid part of the Pacific rather than over towards the Peruvian coast of the Pacific, that's always more likely in a cold PDO era. So it's something that we have seen quite a bit of in recent years. 2009, 2010 was an El Nino Madiki, for instance. And again, I think we are starting to see that signal now. Now, will we ever get to an El Nino? Let's see what the CFS is predicting. It's showing that things are going to warm across the equatorial Pacific through November, so we're going to see more of this. We're going to lose that. We're going to lose that signal for the La Nina neutral and go more towards El Nino neutral. That's November. As we get through to December, though, I think we're in a proper El Nino signal there. We're just about at the threshold in that area there. And notice again, the warm water has risen up through that middle part of the Pacific rather than starting off over here and then moving that way. So yeah, I think we're looking at certainly shifting towards El Nino neutral. Possibly getting towards an El Nino event, to be honest. I think we are shifting more towards an El Nino event, although it's very hard to call this because you remember last year it looked odds on that we'd have an El Nino, and we had a really good El Nino signal through that part of summer into the early part of the autumn. Then into the middle and latter part of the autumn last year, the whole thing collapsed, and that happened because we're in a cold PDO. Because whenever you've got cold water in this region, let's go back. Whenever you've got cold water in that region where the PDO, the signal is, when you've got cold water there, the El Nino, as it rises up, it's fighting against this cold water. Because we've also got this area of cold down here off the coast of Chile, and that's kind of signal that you tend to get more from a La Nina signal, actually, the cold water around there. But anyway, when you've got the El Nino rising along the date line, the warm water coming up along the date line here, if it's coming up into the cold PDO there and it's got cold water there, it's got a fight on its hands really to get going. So that's what happened last year. We had the cold PDO and the result was the El Nino collapsed. And again, we're going to have the same fight, I think, going on this winter. We're going to try and get towards an El Nino, but whether it does it, or whether we just stay on the neutral side of El Nino, it's going to be really interesting to see. But nevertheless, significant changes are taking place, and this El Nino Madiki is quite important. Certainly, it's important for the United States, because when this happens, particularly with a cold PDO, what you tend to find is that you'll get a ridge of high pressure sitting up here, and you'll get a trough of low pressure down there on the eastern side. So the jet stream goes up around the ridge up there in the northwest of America and into the west coast of Canada, and then it'll dive southwards through into the central and eastern part of states around that trough just there. So it does look very likely, I think, that eastern parts of America are going to have a cold winter this year. I really would be calling cold winter for central eastern parts of America, milder under that ridge in the west. Now for us, it's going to depend whether that tripole gets going, and again, these are sea surface temperature anomalies, or sea surface temperature anomaly forecasts. This is for December, and we're not far from a tripole there. Look, we've got the warm area going through the tropics, we've got the cold area in the mid-Atlantic, albeit it could be bigger, it could be more extensive. If it was more like that, it would be better. And then it's warmer again to the south of Greenland, although perhaps not particularly warm. But we're not far from a tripole, certainly there, I don't think. With the El Nino Medici and with the cold PDO, I think we're shaping up certainly for a cold winter in the United States, and that looks quite possible. That's sea surface anomaly for December looks quite possible to me to lead to a cold winter. I've got to say that for the United Kingdom and for much of Europe. Here's the ENSO forecast in terms of the plume forecast from the CFS version 2 model, just showing that we are going to rise up, if this is right, over the next month or two. We're going to get very close. This is the threshold just here where we've got to get to get that El Nino going. We've got to get to there. That line just there. We do get to it just about, but it's a very close run thing. We've got to have 5 tri-monthly periods going above this line, so somewhere to here, to get an El Nino designated. It doesn't look like it's on from that, but it's a very close run thing, and certainly in any case the pattern is going to change in the Pacific, and this is going to drive some changes undoubtedly in the northern hemisphere, across the whole of the hemisphere, really. The El Nino plume, the ENSO plume from the ECMWF model, again showing that we are going to move towards, at the very least, the ENSO positive, or the El Nino positive side of neutral. All the plume members, really, except for a few stragglers around here, which are saying quite cool. All of members really are going up onto the El Nino neutral side. Many of them do go into weak El Nino territory, which is somewhere around there. So again, the ECMWF model very much predicting that we're shifting in the Pacific, we're shifting in the ENSO region towards El Nino neutral. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Now, the current snow cover extent across Siberia, we're doing very, very well for that. There's the latest chart from Friday the 18th of October when I'm doing the video. All of this area is covered. We're above last year, certainly. I'd like to see Scandinavia starting to get a little bit more cover now. I do like to see snow cover beginning to pile up in October over Scandinavia. With these very mild southerly southwesterly winds that's flooding in across much of West Europe at the moment, it's probably not that light, but I would like to see Scandinavia getting a little bit more snow. But certainly for Siberia, we're doing very well, and that probably adds to the chance of a cold winter for the States, actually. This part of Siberia around here, when this gets covered very quickly, it probably sends the ridge more over towards Canada, if anything. We need to see this area becoming covered quite quickly, and into Scandinavia as well. We're going to monitor that over the next couple of weeks, but we're certainly not doing bad for the Siberian snow cover. We're not doing as well as this point in 2002, though. This was the extent in 2002. This was the last time we had a better year in terms of the Siberian snow cover, and most of Siberia by this point, or most of Russia actually, by this point was covered in snow. So we're not doing as well as 2002, but we are doing better than all other years. And just look at how well we're doing for the ice as well. The Arctic sea ice is rebounding very, very strongly this year. Good news, however the winter works out. It's great to see this ice coming back this year. Let's hope we can maintain that into next year. In terms of the solar activity, well, we did pop up to moderate solar activity earlier this week. We've fallen back a little bit again now. I've actually gone back to officially being designated as low solar activity, but with a few sunspots still going on there across the solar disk on our side of the disk. It's more active even today with this sort of low activity, but it has been quite a lot over the last few months. We're going to have to monitor that. It could be the start I've talked about the hemispheres flipping. The northern hemisphere has already lost its magnetic field and flipped. The southern hemisphere is due to do so any time, and a ramp up in sunspot activity would be expected around that flip of the southern hemisphere. So we've got to watch this. It could be a sign of a bit of a ramp up over the next couple of weeks, and of course, next couple of months, I should say. And of course, the idea behind this is when we've got very low solar activity, it does seem to feed back into blocking, particularly for Europe, but also for much of the northern hemisphere. It does seem to feed back into blocking when we've got this low solar activity. Finally, just having a look at how things are progressing with the autumn. Well, September, as we know, came out very much an average month. October is coming out very, very warm. This is from Philippines ClimateUK.com website. You can find a link to this on my links page. Look how warm October is at the moment. We've got a centering temperature of 12.9, which is 1.4 degrees above the 81 to 2010 average. Not 61 to 90, but 81 to 2010 with 1.4 of a degree against that warmer rolling 30-year average. And that could probably only increase over the next week because we're going to have some exceptionally mild nights and some very mild days as well. It's also turning out to be a wetter than average month. We're currently at 112% of the average. That's going to increase over next week. And like September, it's turning out to be a very dull month as well, with just 75% of the average. So October's certainly looking very warm. It's going to be a very warm month. Could potentially just about be the warmest on record. 13.3 in 2001 was the warmest central England temperature on record. We could potentially beat that on the charts I'm looking at, but it's going to be close. I think whatever happens, it's going to be a very warm October. It's also going to be a wet October, warm and wet. And quite what that means for the winter, I'm not sure, because it's quite an unusual combination. Very often when you have it wet in October, you tend to have it quite cool or quite cold, so it's quite an unusual combination, have it warm and wet. Personally, I like to see a dry October. I'm not that fussed on temperatures, to be honest. There's a lot of controversy about this idea, by the way, that weather patterns in the autumn have an impact on the winter. Myself, personally, I do like to see a dry October. I'm not that fussed really about the temperature. It can be warm or cold with those dry conditions, but I do like to see below average rainfall. We're coming out above average in terms of the rainfall, so that probably does negate, on my methodology, that probably does negate quite a bit, actually, for a cold winter. But other things that we're looking at, the tripole, for instance, and the Medici El Nino, or certainly moving towards the neutral side. It's hard to explain this, isn't it? Moving towards the neutral side of El Nino Medici. Where we actually get the El Nino is another thing, but moving towards that warmer phase of in the ENSO region, and with the chance that the tripoles beginning to emerge in the Atlantic, that sort of favours a cold wind. So as ever, it remains such a difficult winter to call this. It's going to be so difficult, and I'm not expecting things to be any clearer really with the seasonal models. I think some of them next week will look very cold, some of them will look very mild, and I think this is going to go on right to the death, to be honest, right to the 1st of December. I'm going to have real problems even when I get to the forecast this year in coming up with a forecast for the winter of 13-14. It's a nightmare winter. It's so hard for me to pin it down. I couldn't do a forecast now. I'm hoping things will get a little bit clearer as we get to December. But so many conflicting signals this year. It really is one of those hard years. That's it for now. So it's the seasonal model roundup next week. Hope you found the video interesting. I didn't go on too long. Don't forget to play the video ad. You'll be supporting Gazware Vids by doing that. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching.